Tran.
It's my pleasure today. Welcome to the CA Community of Practice, Cyber Defense, Beat Your Cyber Competition. And it is my pleasure to introduce our speakers for today. Jessica Leung, you may know because she's a co-chair on the CA Community of Practice for competitions. Jessica and Jayme are co-presidents of the SWIFT Club. And Tran is the captain of the collegiate pen testing team and the head of Swift Academy. And all three students are involved with the competitions that the Swift Club has developed for the CA community, including King of the Hill and RVB. And with that, I will turn it over to them.
Thank you so much, Dr. Manson. Good morning and good afternoon to everyone here today. We are Swift, students with an interest in the future of technology, coming to you from Cal Poly Pomona. And we're really here to introduce the work that we've been doing the past couple of years, bringing competitions to our little community here. My name's Jessica. Like Dr. Manson mentioned, I'm one of the co-presidents of Swift.
Hi, I'm Jacob. I am also the other co-president of Swift. I'm very happy to be here.
And I'm Dylan. I help out with directing student learning at Swift.
So just a little intro about Swift before we get into the stuff that we're doing for competition specifically. We have general meetings and workshops every week where we introduce different students to various like cybersecurity topics. These could be based off of like our own experience, from internships and working, what skills we find important to bring to the greater community, and just little passion projects that we have that we want to shine a light on. And so the idea is on Tuesday, we kind of go into a brief like introduction. And then on Friday, we really like get our hands dirty. We put people into workshop environments where they get to interact with like virtual machines to try to learn these topics. Next slide, please. And here's the amount of VMs that we've spin up over the past year. Every week, we put a really intensive load on our infrastructure. So it just goes to show how much hands-on learning there really is going on. And here is our workshop attendance for this year. As you can see, we're trying our best to try to engage as many people within our community as possible every week. And then, and then outside of that, we also have mentorship programs through alumni mentorship. So people who have graduated and want to give back to the program now that they have jobs in the industry, to Swift Pals, which is a peer-to-peer mentorship program where we pair current members with eBoard members who have a little bit more experience and hope to facilitate like more learning through a group experience. We lean heavily on the competition experience that we get from participating in larger competitions such as CCDC and CPTC. So first off in CPTC, most recently we've took home second place in the region and second place in the nation. And we were able to move on to the nationals round by taking first place in the national wildcard. So CCDC is a defense-oriented competition where students are placed in the role of an like onboarded IT team, and we have to defend our network of up to like 40 hosts and services against an active red team of industry professionals, while also maintaining like business tasks. And so we placed second place out of 180 schools, and it is Cal Poly's best placement. We also participate in CPTC, which is the collegiate penetration testing competition, where we've taken second place globally for the second year in a row now, where students are placed in the role of the pen test team. Dylan could probably talk more about it as he is the captain of the CPTC team.
In this competition, we sort of act as a fictional consulting agency for a fictional company. They contract us to perform a pen test, and assess the network, write a report, and then present to executives. And usually it's very fun and pretty stressful.
We've also recently started participating in NCAE Cyber Games, which is another similar to CCDC. It's more of a blue team oriented competition. We've started training up a team of 10 individuals to participate in this competition. And last year we placed first place in the Western region and made it to nationals with a team of entirely first-time competitors. And even more recently, we started participating in the U.S. Department of Energy Cyberforce competition, which is also a more blue team oriented competition. And this is our first year ever sending a team to Cyberforce. And we placed 16th out of 95 teams in the nation. To train up all these teams, we actually have annual cyber boot camps hosted by our CCDC and CPTC teams. These are 8-week-long boot camps that span over the course of the summer. And we go through all the basic essentials you need to succeed in both of CPTC and CCDC. And this is how we go through our team selection for CCDC and CPTC and also for Cyberforce and NCAE. Next, I'm going to pass it off to Jacob.
Cool. Awesome. Thank you, Jessica. So I'll be starting off Swift competitions with Dylan here and kind of describe how we kind of run them. I think the most unique thing about this is that we're all students, right? We're all people at the college level trying to put together these types of competitions that aren't at the collegiate level, like what you heard with CCDC, CPTC, and stuff like that. And we see this as a chance to sort of just give back to the community at Cal Poly Pomona, right? Because when we compete in stuff, basically the competitions we talked about before, there are a limit to how many students can compete in them, right? So we basically take that knowledge and bring them back into these kind of competitions. And again, these are all student-made competitions, right? The students that make these competitions don't necessarily have to, right? They can just be competing in these collegiate level competitions. But we've kind of, here at Swift, we kind of created the community where we create these competitions so that people that don't have the chance to compete in these collegiate level defense competitions have that opportunity, have kind of a smaller scale down opportunity, but still kind of get a similar opportunity to that as well. And us as students get that experience of building a competition like that. So it creates that peer-to-peer mentorship kind of and a legacy that can keep on and live on. That's what I think is really unique about it. And the first one we're going to talk about is red versus blue. So red versus blue is basically a mini CCDC, right? A mini active red versus blue environment where you're basically put on a blue team. You can think of yourself as an IT administrator trying to defend your network against a red team, right? And this is really difficult because you don't know everything on the environment, right? What kind of systems you have, what kind of vulnerabilities you currently have, and you're kind of just thrown in the deep end, which is the beauty of CCDC, right? You learn on the fly, and it sparks a lot of growth, right? And here's a quote from a former CPP CCDC competitor: "At the end of the day, no one cares who won. You did something you didn't have to just to learn." That's what people remember, right? And a lot of what we try to strive here when we create these competitions is kind of taking that leap of faith to put yourself outside of your comfort zone, right? Getting uncomfortable, so you start sparking that growth. That is really a lot of growth that you can go through just by putting yourself out there and throwing yourself in the deep end, right? So core lessons from red versus blue, again, learn by doing. We create our own environment. Dylan will talk a bit later about our automated environment as well, so we can scale competitions to bring it to other people. So they actually have systems they have to defend and actually go in and hands-on fix vulnerabilities, right? And also business thinking. Cybersecurity is for a business, right? Think like a business and try to execute on company goals. You don't want to make things too secure where at a point a company can't operate, right? It is for the business. Collaboration and teamwork. You collaborate with the team to accomplish goals and complete tasks. So a lot of these lessons are real life, right? A lot of what you'll see when you like get into a job is like a lot of business thinking, right? And you have to collaborate with the people you're around because the business is so big, right? And that's really the beauty of our competitions as well. So here's some pictures of our red versus blue recently. We have started to pivot to more in person. These are mainly for college students, but we also provided red versus blue to high schoolers that just wanted to try it out, and also going to Cyber Patriot Nationals. And that's kind of how red versus blue started out, right? First, we were just making them for high schoolers that were going to nationals, but we realized we could actually bring it to the people here at Cal Poly Pomona and teach them a lot of stuff through it. So here's the attendance throughout the years. So as Swift has kind of been expanding its e-board, we've kind of had more manpower to start like creating more of these in like different types of environments and different themes. As you can see, it's a trend line going up. So we're trying to figure out how we can keep scaling that competition up so that more people can play it and it's more accessible to other people. But as you can see, we're on a good trend line up. So here's some of our themes. So as I mentioned before, you can when you're put into a blue team, you can think of yourself like as an IT administrator. And we give you a scenario such as like the Daily Bugle from Spider-Man, or it might be Star Wars themed, or it might just be like a wasabi company, right? These are really fun just because we're students, we're a little silly, and it creates a more engaging scenario for students to learn and get really into it. So here's kind of our architecture for now. You don't need to know like most of the IP addresses, but as you can see, we have different pod routers. So those represent our different teams. And this creates, our automation creates different environments for each team. So we can create environments from like basically like a click of a button so that when we actually create these environments, students can just spin up an environment and actually go in and defend their systems. Once on that competition day, when we actually have a red team engine, right? Or a red team actually attacking them. And the NAT mappings just translates so that we can have multiple pods on the same kind of network and access them to the scoring engine. And those are just to distinguish each team. So pretty technical, but this is kind of how it looks at a very high level. But this is how we basically scale our teams so that multiple people can participate. So here's the main components of like kind of RVB. We have services such as Windows, Linux, and dependencies. So again, going back to the idea that you're an IT administrator, right? So you're going to have Windows systems, Linux systems, and dependencies. So for Windows, you can have Windows 10's clients that might be vulnerable to something, or you might have a Linux web server that might be have a database somewhere else, and you have to defend those. Those are what we call kind of services. If you're hosting a website, that would be accounted as a service, and our scoring engine will check if your website is down or not, basically just by looking at the website, right? Or it could be looking at a database, or it could be looking at a file server, and those are the things you kind of have to defend. Injects are actually business tasks that we give you during the competition. So while you're still trying to defend your systems, while you're still trying to figure out what's on your environment, you also have to complete these injects. So these are kind of business tasks such as like setting up a certain service. So like if they wanted another FTP server, or if they wanted to add a blog or a page to a website, that would be considered an inject. And you have to respond in a very professional way and make sure you hit every request that inject asks for. So here's a topology from the Daily Bugle. So these are the different services that we have. We have the Connect box, which has SMB and SSH, directory, DNS, so that you can actually translate internally. And there's a lot of really fun stuff here as well. And these are mostly all vulnerable. And some of these servers are dependent on another. So if one service goes down, it could also influence another service. So for example, if I had a website pulling from a database and someone gets into the database and drops all the tables, then my website goes down. So then my website service is not operating anymore, right? So that's kind of how we structured the competition as well. And yeah, so injects, here's just an example of us role playing as J. Jonah Jameson from the Daily Bugle. So he's like, hey, Parker, looks like I forgot my email credentials again. So I will be sending you my mail personally. Be sure to read it carefully and complete the task as directed. I will be checking periodically to see if FTP is running once it is set up. So basically, J. Jonah Jameson, I don't think do we show the full? Yeah, so here's the full injects here as well. But the first one here is just asking you to set up FTP. And the ones here is saying to like set up SSH with this SSH key, and also kind of looking at the web servers that we have on the environment as well. Again, you're looking at these business tasks while you're defending your systems and trying to figure out like what's vulnerable on your environment. So like then this is kind of what creates that kind of growth and spark that we see in people, and that they just kind of learn on the fly under pressure, basically. So here's the basic strategy that we see most students do. We do basically inventory, right? Nmap scans, what is connected to what is dependent on what? Is there a website depending on a database? And if so, is that secure? Baseline, find low-hanging fruit, such as like passwords, open ports that aren't supposed to be open, stuff like that. And then harden, so actually technical hardening, disabling stuff, troubleshooting stuff that might be vulnerable, stuff like that. But yeah, I'll hand it off to Dylan.
So the other competition that we host is King of the Hill. And whereas RVB is a much is focused on emulating CCDC and putting you into the hot seat while also trying to translate over real world elements such as the business component of being a cybersecurity operator. King of the Hill is focused on a more relaxed and for fun approach. And the idea behind this competition is that we have a vulnerable network and every single team is out there to compromise it and take control of it, and just which is why it's the King of the Hill. The hill is the network and you want to be the king. You want to plant your flag, you want to maintain dominance. And you may notice from those pictures before that not as many in-person attendees, whereas our RVBs have an in-person focus to get the whole theme across. With King of the Hill, we have a focus on accessibility. So a lot of our teams were remote. We had high schoolers from across California, and we even had a team from UT San Antonio participating. And next slide, please. When it comes to access, we use well, the way the competition really works is you use two tools, Camino, which is a cloning infrastructure that we've developed, and Apache Guacamole to obtain access to your attacker machine. And then afterwards, you just start attacking the network. These two, the first two, Guac and Camino, them combined really allows us to make our competitions accessible, because the only thing you need now is a laptop with a web browser. You don't need to set up all your virtual machines. You don't need to have like a technical entry or hardware restrictions. You can just participate. Next slide, please. So the way Camino works is you just access this site that we have set up. You can register, and once you register, you log in with those credentials. We have preset templates that allow you to just select them and clone. So for King of the Hill in particular, there's a Kali template, and this is more of a thing for the future, but we do intend to have sort of template a lot of our past competitions. So then anybody who wants to sort of try to relive the experience or try things from a different environment can simply just spin it up using all the infrastructure we have for them. Next slide, please. Now we have Apache Guacamole. This is a sort of VNC thing. It will allow competitors to, after they spin up a pod, to just access their Kali without needing anything. They don't need to have any software installed. They just go on their web browser, log in with the credentials, they register with Camino, and they have access to a Kali. And in particular for King of the Hill, this Kali is going to have network level access to the King of the Hill network. So then from there, they can just start attacking and trying to plant their flag. Next, okay. Yeah, so the basic strategy behind King of the Hill is enumerate, exploit, and persist. It's like a very cut down version of the typical pen test methodology, since this is a more offensive / purple team based competition. So when it comes to enumeration, we just want teams to try to figure out what is actually running on the environment, rather than just trying to do things at the very start, trying to get some situational awareness. Then after situational awareness is obtained and familiarity with the environment is obtained, then just getting your foothold attempting to exploit whatever vulnerable services or applications that we have set up. And then once you compromise the machine that you're attacking, implement some forms of persistence, and this is when it shifts to more of a blue team side of a competition, where you want to prevent other players from gaining access to that machine, whether it be mitigating the vulnerabilities that you use to obtain access, or having a more active response and killing the sessions that other teams are planting on the machine that you've conquered. Next slide, please. Now, the way you actually get rewarded for compromising a machine is there are checks done. Just like in RVB or in CCDC, we have a scoring engine that is going to check the services that are running, or they're going to be checking for who has administrative access on the machine. And in that way, we can sort of determine which team has compromised the box and give them points accordingly. There are going to be flags in different locations. So, for example, a web server may have a specific endpoint where it serves a flag, and it would be the competitor's responsibility to modify that flag when they compromise the machine, so then they can get, claim ownership of that. Or sometimes there's just a flag located in the desktop directories of the machine, which the scoring engine will check in order to determine whether or not full administrative access has been obtained to that particular machine. Next. So moving forward, the things that we are sort of looking at want to do. So as I stated earlier, King of the Hill, it is a mix of an offense and defense competition. It's pretty lightweight and simple to set up, but we like how RVB tries to emulate CCDC and how they both try to emulate a real world worst case scenario blue team setting. We want to also bring a similar feeling over to an offense-based competition. So moving forward, what we want to do is sort of set up our own version of CPTC, or the collegiate penetration testing competition. And to emulate the whole worst case scenario, we want to create a very vulnerable company network with very interesting clients who may not be the most cooperative or not the most fun people to work with. And aside from that, we also want to make our competitions more accessible through fully utilizing the capabilities of that automation infrastructure Camino that I was referring to earlier. With that being said, though, are there any questions for us?
This is Stephen Torrey from Mississippi State. Do you hear me all right?
Yes.
Sorry. I love getting over a little bit of a cough, and so it's like it comes up at the most inopportune times. The reason I wanted to ask a question is like how to duplicate, or is it necessary to duplicate what you're doing? In other words, we have a cybersecurity club here. People want to get more into this, and I'm trying to give resources to the cyber club's leadership as to what they can do. And I'm interested about the summer boot camps, how those run, the resources, time, people, to get an idea about duplicating that here, if possible.
Okay, so the way we go about, let me just make sure that I understand the question properly. So you want to try to like understand like how we run our boot camps, the infrastructure, and the type of material that we go through. So your university can also emulate that. Is
well,
that
either we
correct?
can, some places they can offer us ability to use it or duplicate it, but yeah, I'm trying not to reinvent the wheel here in a sense.
Okay. So for at least the way we go about things, it's around 6 to 8 weeks of content based on both the competitions and our experiences from whatever we have done in the real world, whether it be an internship or actually working. Then we use the cloning infrastructure we have to create labs that they can that participants can utilize what we've sort of taught and actually perform the hands-on learning, since lecturing and explaining an idea is only like a very small component of the learning process. Uh, as for, I'm not sure if I understood the question properly,
And
but did you want to?
I'll jump in. Can students attend the camp remotely?
Oh yes, they support remote completely. Mainly, a big part of it is because us as instructors during the summer boot camps, sometimes we may be back home with our family, or we might be on an in-person internship, so it becomes very difficult to have a whole in-person attendance. So we do completely support remote based learning.
And if I may add, we open up our competition boot camps to everyone, remotely, from other schools, all ages, even industry professionals. If you're interested in, participating or helping out, we're open to any sort of collaboration. And I just dropped a link in chat, scisec.team. That is our official competition team website. On there, you can find previous recordings of our past 2 years of hosting this boot camp, along with other resources such as any slides and homework that we've given out. But yeah, we're open to anyone joining our boot camps, even if you're from a competitor school. If we're gonna face off against you in CCDC, we still don't mind if we can
Right.
join each other's boot camps and learn from each other.
We've had both a mix of high schoolers and other university students, some from Northern California, some from USC. They've come to our boot camps and been participants.
And I'll jump in. I get the opportunity to work here at Cal Poly Pomona, but one of the things I think I would really like to see, and I think something we've been working toward, is starting to share these materials. It's a lot of work. I mean, the students make it look kind of easy here, but it's been a lot of work. It's a heavy lift to create these competitions and create the environments. So one of the things I think from a faculty perspective, we're really excited about the possibility that first of all, sharing these out. I'm super proud of what Swift does, and the fact that they do share that out with anybody, but also we're hoping to see the community having more of that, because we know the same kind of thing happens at other schools. And so having a way to more effectively share that with others, so that because we can only play our own game so many times before you just the whole game. There's no point to playing, but if we can share those resources, that really opens up the opportunity. And like, as they mentioned, only a few people get to be on CCDC or CPTC. We have 1,300 students studying cyber. So, that's what Swift does for us. They bring, those games, those types of learning experiences from those games to the rest of the masses here on campus, and to high schoolers, and to other, colleges and universities. But anyway, doing this at a community level is, certainly for me, a hope.
And additionally, another link that I dropped in the chat is just access to our cloning infrastructure. And there are plans in the future for us to make this portable so that other schools can also utilize the same thing on their infrastructure, and try to introduce the same amount of because we've been through a lot of hurdles with how we could efficiently clone. We went from staying up all night cloning each individual pod manually, waiting hours and hours for that to complete, all the way to now, when it's fully optimized. The user can clone their pod themselves within a couple minutes, and deploying en masse. So we have plans of making this public and sharing it with other schools as well, if there's an interest to bring this to other schools.
Certainly, I think there's interest to bring it to any school. It's like trying to be a NSA Center of Academic Excellence. Having hands-on stuff, whether it's a club type thing or simply a part of one of the classes. I could see this being useful in providing hands-on assignments for a number of software engineering classes that we want to start adding cybersecurity into.
Yeah. Like I said, it's just I think as a community, and the Swift meetings, I don't think they made it as clear, but there's students from many schools that connect to that as well. So even the weekly meetings, and again, hopefully that kind of thing, we're hoping as a community, within the CAE, those kinds of opportunities keep growing, because that's we do a few things, but if every school, or if lots of schools did a few things, we would have lots of resources to share among us as a community.
I have a question to the outstanding panel. First of all, you guys are amazing. And thank you for the great presentation. The question I have, so I'm a professor at Nova Southeastern University, and I'm also the professor overseeing our club. And we do have activities, and they compete in different competitions. We did a couple of competitions last year. They tend to like more the competitions that are more on the electrical engineering side. So they do the MITRE and some others. But we're getting into doing also the CCDC and CAE games, cyber games. Question for you that I see a little bit of a challenge, and it might be something unique for our school or our region of the nation. In South Florida, a lot of our students are working, even when they're an undergraduate students. Most of them are working full time. Some of them have families to take care of, parents to take care of. And I hear a lot from the students the challenge of trying to balance everything out, and also on top of all of it, add school and competitions or external things. So do you see any of those challenges with the students that are part of your club? And also let me know, how do you handle the issue of continuation from one year to the next? Our university has this rule that every year the university cleans up all the club registration, and we have to recreate all and reinvite all the students to join the club again every year. I don't know if you guys are facing the same challenge, and if you're, how do you overcome some of the challenges of continuation from one year to the next? So you talked a little bit about the folks that are the pals, right? The Swift pals. That's a great idea. I'm going to steal it. And we're going to start implementing something like that. But any other ideas that you may have? Thank you.
Yeah, so I could go ahead and talk about how we maintain this community. I think the key to not having, I guess, like maintaining the turnover year over year is just not basing our like community on what the school is able to provide or what the school is able to facilitate. We have the same issue where every year we have to re-register, and we have to almost basically rebuild, like, our club, all of that stuff, like the back end of the club basically. But that's mostly handled by e-board members. And to the members who just attend our meetings, it's no different. They just come back to Swift every year, and it's the same club, the same, structure, the same people. We're just bringing new ideas. And I think a big thing is just like having that community outside of what the school allows, like, or facilitates in the sense. So we have like our own Discord server where that's where most of our like members communicate with each other. We host meetings fully online as well as in person. So even if we perhaps, like during COVID, when we didn't have access to in-person like opportunities, we didn't really lose a large part of the audience because we just immediately switched to a fully Zoom environment. We're able to actually build and be stronger from that because we opened up the opportunity to people like in other schools and other like from other regions. So I think just being like adaptable to those changes is probably the key to us staying a club for so many years, because this year is actually Swift's 30-year anniversary. So we've been a club for a really long time. But Jacob and Dylan, if you want to add.
Oh, yeah. Just hopping on what you said as well, Jess. It's a lot about creating that kind of environment that's like thriving. Swift Pals was actually made last year. And it was also to kind of bring in new people for Swift so that like when we hand off the torch next year, there are people to actually take it. But you mentioned a lot about like kind of keeping people interested as well and kind of maintaining it like consistently. it's a lot about just finding the right people, right? And being able to talk to the students of your club. Because I feel like Swift, the environment's very passionate, right? I like to describe it kind of as like you're surrounded by like people very passionate and their passion is very contagious, right? And then the handoff to like next year is really easy to do that. So like just like even just like talking to people during meetings or like getting people involved is like enough for people to like be really like kind of spark that interest for them to get more involved, if that makes sense. It's a lot of just interacting with your members and like encouraging them or like kind of instilling that passion into them as well. Because I feel like the passion was also instilled in me. But yeah, it's a lot of like being surrounded by the right people and just interacting with them. But yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, go ahead, Dylan.
Okay, so my input on this is which is along the lines of what Jacob was saying, sort of. It is, I would say, a large part of it is also how the club conducts itself. I understand that some people or some universities, some clubs may conduct themselves very seriously or professionally because that's the way they want to be sort of received, and that's completely fine. But oftentimes when people who are very skilled at their work present themselves in that very professional manner, they can seem very unapproachable. So as a club, we also focus on sort of being very like we demonstrate our passion and our interest. We talk about what we do. We're very vocal about it, but we also try to be very casual and approachable. So people who want to learn are willing to, what to them feels like, take a risk and step forward. And that's at least how my involvement got started. Was I was very tangentially interested in security, but not completely. The club seemed very approachable, and I approached it as a result, and I'm here now.
Cool. Do you all see the Discord channel? We have also a Discord channel for the e-hackers. We call them the NSU e-hackers, E for ethical. And do you see the Discord channel as the place to really rally the troops and get everyone together, or is this something you're active in?
Yeah, we're extremely active on our Discord, and it's like Jacob and Dylan said, right? We're like a really big community, and we are really friendly towards each other. We're basically like attached at the hip at this point. I think we're always together doing the same things at the same time and just trying to like, yeah. I think as long as like we're here, we're communicating with our members constantly.
Jessica, can you post the Discord link for Swift?
Sure. Yeah, all of our links are just .calpoly.swift. So we have discord.calpoly.swift or .calpoly.swift, sorry. I think we have always 200 to 300 like active members in our Discord at a time. Not everyone's obviously communicating at the same time, but yeah.
I would throw in one of the things that we're hoping from a faculty and from a university side, that we're hoping to see this grow into. First of all, I already got Swift to agree to working with one of our courses this coming spring. So we're going to start putting these competitions into our courses. They'll become a graded element of the courses, which is kind of ironic that the students are running the classes now. But anyway, but I think that's going to be, really exciting. The other thing we're really trying to push for is looking at the scoring of the competitions and trying to align that with the competencies, particularly out of the NICE framework. And so that it's, the end of a competition, the score can be part of the assessment report you turn in and whatnot, and have a high degree of association between those pieces. So, and also we're really, a handful of us are conspiring to do what Dan's been telling us to do for a decade or more and try to turn this into something that's so repeatable that it can become like a sports league. And hopefully then include lots more people, that it's not, something that's for the few people who made the CCDC team. It's for, as many teams as you want to create. So it's for the masses. but then I'll have almost like a European football league type process of how teams can move up and move down. And but it can be a big crazy mass, not just a few people participating.
In order to play RVB and King of the Hill remotely, what does a student need to have on their own machine? Does a student need to have some special tools on their machine?
So at least for King of the Hill, all they need right now is a web browser and for the event to actually be running. So then we'll have the appropriate stuff for them to connect to and launch. They won't need to download anything. Everything should be accessible through the browser. As for Red versus Blue, current like so far all the current iterations have required them to be in our Discord during the event because we have to assign injects. And then they also need to usually have a VPN client so then they can connect to the environment. I believe we're trying to get that changed so it can be the arrangement can be similar to King of the Hill, where in a very ideal world they won't need to be able to connect through VPN. They could just access everything through their web browser if we could set it up like that. But we're currently working on that still.
How far in advance would a group of students or faculty need to reserve time to play King of the Hill or RVB?
Usually when we usually make announcements about when the event is happening, usually about like a month or two in advance, and that's usually around the time window for those official events.
But it could be done almost instantaneously if it evolved to that kind of regularity. That the problem is students are doing this out of the goodness of their heart on top of lots of other tasks. So it's a lot, especially the three here, but many other students as well, put a lot of, effort. That's a big labor of love to, put all this together. But that certainly is something as a university, we need to find a way to support this and make this more routine and regular and whatnot, because the technology would allow spinning it up quickly as long as there's the people resources to support that. So part of it's knowing how often people would want to use it, and then lining up resources that don't make the poor students who are doing all the work even more. So we need to offer jobs around it. So that's one of the things we need to do to scale it up, if that's something that we can work on doing. And we're trying to do that on our campus. We're trying to help have our administrators understand the value proposition of this and make it more easily accessible and whatnot. So, but that takes resources. So that's one of the things we're pushing for.
So Ron, go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, no, sorry. Go ahead. Oh, I was just going to build off of what Dylan said. The idea of King of the Hill was really just to make it as accessible as possible. So our goal with, all of this automated infrastructure deployment is just to make it as, to remove as many barriers of entry as possible. One of the reasons is because we recently brought this competition to the Sands Hackfest, hosted in LA just last week. And the idea was for people who are attending the conference to be able to take a couple hours, maybe even just 30 minutes out of their day to set aside, maybe stand in the break room for a little bit and play our competition for as long as they would like. So we didn't want them to have to, go through downloading a VPN client and grabbing our VPN profile, all that stuff. We wanted them to just be able to use their web browser and be able to play. So the idea is just to make that as accessible as possible. And so as long as you're willing to play and the competition's running, you could start in 2-3 minutes.
Ron, question for you on the philosophy of funding. Do you see this and continuing the concept of athletic league? Do you think eventually we should really go higher up at our institutions and start ask for funding for coaches, for cyber coaches, for our clubs, similar to what they do for? I mean, at my university we have professional golfers group, we have basketball, we have swim team, We have all of these teams and all of these coaches are fully funded by the university, yet we have zero funded on cyber team, right?
Right. Well, the only school I know that has funded scholarships, athletic scholarships for cyber is Indiana Tech, which I think is a great model. But I absolutely think that this is needed, to develop this out. If we want everyone studying cyber to play cyber and have, games to where every Saturday there's, there are blocks of games happening every 2 hours and it becomes a sports league and whatnot. I think that's super powerful. I think that's, the kind of growth and learning that, needs to happen. So yes, I believe that we need athletic scholarships for cyber students. I think that we need a, facilities wise, adequate compute power to run these events at scale. And, what is that scale? I don't know if that's, 20 teams playing each, every Saturday, or if that's 2,000 teams playing each Saturday, or 20,000 teams playing each Saturday. I think all those are possible. And I think there's, I don't know if there's demand for 20,000 teams, but I bet it's more than 2,000 teams per week. If we could offer scholarships for participation, and if we formalize, right now, for faculty doing this, it's kind of a hard sell, just because, at least for our institution, I think for most, it's not anything that campus really recognizes. It's you advise a club. Well, this is, if you have to go raise the money and you have to do these, it's a lot more work than, advising a club. And so I think that if schools want to be serious, it has to be, I think, more of a formal coach. And that's happening at a number of schools. I know a number of schools, especially in Florida, there's some, great examples of schools that have, become very serious and very formalized around, this activity. We're not there yet, but that's certainly a argument we have on campus, and it's an ongoing argument.
Ron, you've made some progress with getting someone who's not a faculty involved in being a coach. Do you want to mention how you were able to do that?
Of all the complaining we've got, we have gotten some major concessions. One of our IT employees, is not part of our security team. He has a huge passion for this sort of thing. And he was already helping out, but, helping out in his spare time and, where he could, skip out of work and whatnot. The university did make his position half, 50% of his position assigned to helping to support the cyber teams and whatnot. That's been a huge step forward. Partly in helping create resources and facilities and organize things on the backside for teams, but also just traveling. This last spring, one weekend we had 4 different teams in 4 different places in the country. It's, as one person, you can't be at 4 places. And so there's just some realities that with as many competitions as we play and as many students we have participating, they're just realities that have to be dealt with. And so we're still grappling, but we made small progress. We've got half a person here, and we'll take anything we can get, but we're hoping to get more toward what you're talking about. But I really do think it's paid coaches, and I think it's athletic scholarships for the students who are making a serious enough commitment to it and representing the university. I think absolutely. I mean, if golf and bowling can get these things, it's ridiculous that cyber wouldn't. In fact, we try to point as a Division II school, none of our students, athletes, go pro in baseball or soccer or all the other sports they play, but 100% of our cyber students go pro. So that's, I think that's where we should put our money.
Dan?
Again, I'm very, very proud of what these students do. And there's something magic when you have peer learning. It's not Ron really teaching these students when it gets into what they do as a club. It's the students bonding together and teaching each other.
Completely agreed. In fact, Dan and I wrote a paper based on Malcolm Gladwell's book Outliers, and it really focuses on the role of peer learning in terms of developing, high-level skills. And I think it's a super important lesson. And I think that is the that's the majority of the reason we've had the successes we've had in competitions, I think, is because students have been so dedicated. The university's been able to, we've been able to achieve enough resources to where they can put on these activities, they can host these activities, but then the students are putting together the competitions and whatnot. And I think as a community, we need to support this kind of thing. I think we need far more of it. I would love to see some kind of a website we have where there's 30 different games from 30 different universities, and you can download it. You can play red team and blue team and purple team, and that, there's just a plethora of things, and having a lot of upvoting and downvoting, and put money at, I don't know if we can do that through the CAE community or through the NSA, or whether we have to go find money through companies, or we can beat it out of our administrators. But I think we have to support the students that are creating and writing these games. I think there's great academic learning just in the development of the games. If you want to build the vulnerabilities into the back end of a system, you learn an awful lot about those vulnerabilities. And so I think there's just really great learning on playing the game, but also even greater learning on developing the game.
Absolutely. And I know Dan is running with Stu, who was here earlier. I don't see him. He probably had a class and had to leave, but they're running a brand new initiative to start focusing on the clubs. And that may be part of what they're going to come up with. I think the initial chart was for them to just assess all the clubs that we have around the CAE community and make a list of those and tag them. But maybe as a follow-up, that will be an option to look at the competitions and the activities that they do, and then publicize it across the community. So
it's definitely a goal for us to have students be able to share their resources with other
Right.
students, as well as faculty share with other faculty.
awesome. This is wonderful. And I'm sure as we move forward, the CAE community and NSA will support larger activities like that. So that's wonderful.
Well, thank you, Jessica, Jacob, Dylan. We really salute you for what you're doing, and we want it to spread.
Thank you so much for the opportunity to present. And also it's a big team that's doing all of this. It's not just the three of us. We're just representing the greater Swift community.
Thank you so much. Wonderful presentation. And happy Thanksgiving, I guess, for everyone.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Thanksgiving.
Thanks you all.
Thank you.
Take care. Stay safe.
Bye-bye.